Okay, awesome. I'm excited for today. I'm so excited for today because every time I talk about personal branding, I geek out. Today, we are going to talk about how brand archetypes, or what specifically brand archetypes can teach you about yourself, to learn about yourself, and the secrets to success. So using this all for the secrets of success, right? So this is specifically for my female leaders, entrepreneurs in the online space who really have a desire to build or grow your business and brand online successfully and be able to ultimately make that impact in the world. You have a gift, you have a desire. This is about women, how to position you in the world to be seen, to be known, to be recognized for your gift and your wisdom that ultimately could be saving somebody's life right now. There are people who need what you have, who need to experience the benefits of the lessons that you've learned, that you have to share with them. They need it. They need it now. They need it now more than ever. And ultimately, it's really about positioning women and shifting that conversation on how women are positioned in the world to be making that larger impact, right? So that's what, to me, my biggest mission and desire for helping women do that, specifically in the entrepreneurial and online space, is to really empower and elevate women's voices, to supporting them, not just with their gifts, but ultimately how women are seen and positioned in the world. So it's shifting that conversation so that it elevates, right? Everything is about evolving and elevating. And I always feel like shifting and elevating and evolving that conversation, supporting women, is always deepest on my heart. Okay, so there's this guy. There's this guy. There's always a guy, right? There's always a guy. And I'm a little bit obsessed with him, in a healthy way, right? A healthy obsession, right? It's okay. It's okay. It's definitely an obsession. I totally love smart guys. If you don't know, you'll never see him on my Instagram. Maybe sometimes you might see him on my Instagram or my social media. I can't really share that much about him. His name is Carl Jung. I could nerd out and braingasm with what he knows all day, if he were alive. So I love him so much. If you don't know, you need to know. If you do, you're my kind of girl, okay? Basically, he was most known for identifying 5 primary archetypes of our psyche, right? Our unconscious mind. This is where I nerd out, okay? If you've been following me for a while, you know that I love talking about consciousness and higher consciousness and just truly knowing and understand, know thyself to the deepest level, right? Internally, spiritually, across the board. So he identified, right, the persona, then you have the shadow, then he has the animus and the anima, but honestly, I think he combined both of those together. So let's just bring those together, right? And then the self. He took those 5, those are the unconscious parts of us. And then the archetypes are the characteristics or the personalities, so to speak, right? So granted, there's 12 primary ones. I do like to nerd out a little bit, and I associated them with astrology. You can. Many people have done it. And there's different thoughts on that, but more on that later. Just because those are also aspects of our human psyche, our personality. They're all these parts and these characteristics of our innate way of being, right? So to really, truly understand you could take and learn about the different archetypes, okay? I nerded out with a Google slide deck, and I went through and broke down all of the 12 archetypes. They have a positive side, and then they have a shadow side, similar to our personalities, right? Or our characteristics. So I feel like, side note, I feel like some people think about the shadow side as like bad and wrong and associate it with something negative. And what we have to remember is that anytime you go through an experience in life, you have to pass through these shadow archetypes or the shadow side to the archetypes, right? So anytime any significant event, it could be a transition in job, it could be a relationship transition, it could just be you going through and evolving your own consciousness. You have to pass through the shadow. It's like we put these like, almost derogatory terms on it, like the underworld, but it's really, it's understanding, there's the positive side that is the empowering version. And that puts you, like, you associate that with coming out of and strengthening yourself or stepping into that next highest version of you. But you wouldn't have the contrast. You wouldn't know how to move into that if you didn't have the contrast of the shadow side. So just kind of putting it in that context, shadow doesn't always mean bad. So if you have your persona, you have the shadow side, you have yourself, you have the animus and the anima, and then you have the characteristics of all of those. And you can go through these archetypes. You can download my PDF if you want to, DM me if you want it. Like I said, I went through the shadow side and the light side and the transitions that you might be going through in life to show you like what situation you might be transitioning through, or it might be a life event, or it might be an age. We go through different transitions no matter what age we're at. Quarter life crisis, midlife crisis, pre-quarter life crisis, they're just crisis. Sometimes it's just in a crisis. Sometimes you're in traffic and it's just a crisis. But all of these are really to understand you, understand human behavior, understand consciousness, understand your subconscious. I mean, I know some people just thought branding was about colors and fashion. And as much as it is, yes, that's the fancy part. But it really is truly the first element of understanding branding is to really understand you. It's self-awareness. Any of you who have been doing the personal development work with me, you know, I always say like awareness is phase 1. Because we need to know about ourselves in order to then influence our behavior for a positive. So you might be using some of these archetypes to see what situation you might be in, and then use the positive side of these archetypes to help positively influence you to getting through it, evolving, getting to that next level, shifting your perspective. Sometimes you need to be able to kind of step outside of your own vantage point to really see how you can move yourself to that next step. Going a little bit vague because it's always specifically different for each individual, right? So each time you have these experiences, you're going to be in one of the archetypes. Now, granted, I love how Carl Jung really only specifies 12 of them. We are such multi-dimensional beings. And so of course you're going to have aspects and elements that are offshoots of these, but this is a great framework to start with in truly understanding you and understanding how you can support yourself in succeeding, whether it's your career or your business. So if you kind of think about, if you think about the last movie that you watched, right? All movies use character archetypes. And if you kind of go through and watch like whatever those challenges were that character that you're watching is going through, like if the movie just had like easy, no confrontation, no challenges, nothing to like work through to overcome, like it would be a boring movie. You know what I mean? Like we thrive on experiencing or witnessing so that we can have the connection and the emotional connection with watching someone move through a transition, move through a challenge, into transitioning into something positive. It's kind of how our life is. We all say we would love to be just happy and positive all the time, but being super real, we would be bored. We would have no challenges to overcome, nothing to give us that sort of like dopamine release of, I achieved this thing, I had to overcome this, and then I achieved that. Growth is your goal. You're always going to have that drive. There's a famous quote, or not famous, excuse me. There's a quote that I read. If I knew who it was by, I would totally give credit, but I wrote it down and I have no idea who said this, but it says, I'm going to read it. Archetypes are the secret forces behind human behavior, because archetypes reside in our unconscious. And so they're the part of our minds that we are not aware of, and they influence us without even knowing it. And this is how we get to sort of, using the principle and the quote of Carl Jung, being able to take that sort of unconscious, what you don't know about yourself, bringing it in front of you, bringing it into a conscious perspective, so that then you know how to influence yourself in a positive way, right? This is not to get into differentiating and arguing like, oh, there's negative influence and people can use, unhealthy ways of influencing people. That's of course, there's always going to be some jackass who's going to use something to influence somebody in a negative way. But for you and your success and the goals that you have, there is being able to positively influence yourself in shifting what's not working and then shifting into what is working. That's what growth is. That's what achievement is. That's what success is. Am I right or right? Like, that's one of the specific reasons why, when I'm teaching in personal development, specifically in what's called parts and integration work, is because you're really like identifying those inner unconscious identities that you have, that you're working with, that you would support you in achieving your goals. Because what happens if internal identities start arguing with each other? I don't know if you've ever had that. Most people usually do, and they don't always know that is, right? It could be two archetypes and they both have an agenda, and then they're in there arguing, and then you're not achieving the goals that you have, right? It's one of the reasons why we're doing identity work and getting really in touch with who you are and who you want to be and what that gap is in between. Okay, but let's bring it back to branding a little bit. Okay, who remembers the Spice Girls? I mean, like, who doesn't, right? Tell me what I want. No, I'm not. That's embarrassing. We're not doing that. But you can say, I know you just heard the song in your head. Every single person has, okay? But if you look at them, just as an example, who was your favorite? Which archetype was your favorite? They were represented by, right? There's Sporty Spice, Scary Spice, Sexy Spice, Posh Spice. Like, they each had a personality, a characteristic. Those were all archetypes, because if you identified with one, maybe you identified a little bit with each one, because those would be aspects of your identity, aspects of something that you feel aligned with, maybe not all the time, but then sometimes. If you're going and you're like, working out and you're putting on, your sexy yoga pants, and your Nikes, whatever it is, like, you're totally in Sporty Spice mode. You're going out with the girls on a night out. Maybe you're getting, ready to teach a class. Maybe you're, launching something, like putting yourself into something that feels a little bit more, I'm always a big fan of, like, give me stilettos over tennis shoes. That's always going to make me feel more empowered. Like, tell me I'm wrong, ladies. Tell me that, like, you don't feel like such a badass of, like, let's go take on the world and the business and, like, get out of my way, fucking bitches. If you're in a dope pair of stilettos and you're feeling yourself and you feel like you look good and you feel good in your body and you're dressing up, like, you feel different than if you're in your tennis shoes and maybe knee stretched yoga pants, and it's just a different feel. Now, of course, there could be some women that are like, I put on tennis shoes and yoga pants and I can slay all day. That could totally be you, right? When I was in the entertainment industry, to me, it was always the shoes. It was always the wardrobe a little bit. It was always that, but then really, like, I could do all the foundational work of building the character, right? Building the aspects, using the archetypes, understanding what that character's intentions were, the values, all of the things that are personal branding. But on the those are the internal aspects, right? But on the outside, it always came down to like the finishing touches where how does what I'm wearing, and it was always shoes. Like I said, don't ask me why, but it was like stepping in. It had this, like you put on these different shoes and you feel like you embody this element within yourself that already comes from within you. This is not seeking something external and trying to like fake it as you. This is something that you already feel is you and embodying that. One of my favorite quotes from Marilyn wrote, give a woman a pair of shoes and she can take over the world, right? She was totally onto something. It had nothing to do about the shoes. It had to do with how you feel when you step into something that makes you feel more empowered, confident, ambitious, something that goes after your goals, right? Or that embodiment of who you need to be going after your goals. So yes, personal branding is about the internal, most specifically, and then it's the external, right? But you have to ultimately truly understand yourself, truly being able to understand yourself, and then how you also want to be how you want to be represented, how you want to position yourself in the world. Specifically, you have an online business, right? You are your brand. So you already have a brand, but it's getting really conscious on truly knowing yourself and then truly setting up the positioning on how you want to be seen in the world so that you can achieve then the professional goals that you want. So yes, of course, it's about image. Yes, it's more specifically about you and then building those relationships. We'll talk so much more about getting into each one of those specifics. We always have to make sure that who we are, who we feel authentically, is then how we want to be seen in the world. Oftentimes, there's a gap in between. There's maybe who you think you need to be for other people and it doesn't match who you feel like you authentically are, or you feel like you're this authentic version and then you're trying to be something that you feel like you're not. That's where imposter syndrome comes through, right? But either way, there's this gap, and it's not integrating the who you are authentically and then how you are positioned in the world. That's not congruent. That was the word I was looking for. It's not congruent yet. But when you actually achieve that, when you have who you authentically are and how you want to be seen in the world, how you want to position yourself for success in the world, that's what I call a profitable personal brand. That's what we're talking about. How to build a profitable personal brand so that then you can make the bigger impact, so that you can have the clients be attracted to you that you want to work with, so that then you can increase your income, so that then you can do all those, ultimately having the life that you desire to have. Everything starts with getting super clear on your personal brand, establishing that congruency between who you authentically are and how you are seen in the world. Everything you build after that is wonderful. Like everything will stem off of your personal brand. And anybody who hasn't done that, they usually start off, right? Not everybody knows this. They will usually start off with like strategy, marketing, right? Marketing is putting it out into the world. Branding is what people truly connect with you, right? That's the difference. It's the reason why they connect with you. It's deepening those relationships. How you position yourself, creating that profitable personal brand is what will have you ultimately make the impact that you have a desire to make in the world. As much as it's about creating the business that you want, as much as it's about elevating your business, as much as it's about, attracting the clients that you want, creating demand, ultimately having that life, that's not the most important thing, right? Those are things that are desired. That's what everybody says that we want. Of course. But again, as I was mentioning before, this is really about rewriting how women are positioned in the world, how you specifically are positioned in the world. It's putting her, your most authentic, highest, badass self, it's putting her front and center so that she can be heard, so that she can be seen and acknowledged. Because I believe ambitious women bring a wisdom and a power, authentic, genuine power, not egoic power, but ultimately this nurturing, empathy power to creating a ripple effect that will be seen and influence generations. That's what I truly believe. We as women bring this sort of, it's the creative essence of being a woman. And so it's about giving that voice to your most powerful inner feminine, whether you feel like you're aligned with her or you're stepping into being that version. It's giving her the voice so that we're leveling the balance of all industries for all women and supporting that creator essence of all women. Like, I believe that is what will shift culture. That is what will elevate any business. That balance of that feminine and that masculine that women can fully embody. Men embody that as well. Anyone who even identifies non-binary as well. It's that feminine creator essence. And to have women be stepping more into their leadership, be unapologetically bold in what they want to say and who they're here to say it to and what they're here to bring and offer and positively make change in the world. That's what I believe is about leveraging how women are seen and positioned in the world. And that's what sets a new standard, in my opinion. That's why I'm passionate about working with women and doing that. And I believe that personal brand, your personal brand, is how you do that. Your personal brand is the currency. It's the value of your success. And anybody who is on the venture of wanting to make a difference in the world, wanting to share your wisdom and make a larger impact and bring your wisdom online and grow your business, your personal brand has to be foundational. It has to be foundational for how you want to position yourself in the world as a woman, as a powerful personal brand. Profitable, powerful personal brand is the difference.